Hey everybody, Greg Johnson here again. Today we're going to talk a little bit about things to consider when going into retirement. So maybe you're ready to move on to that next stage of your life. Maybe you're tired of your job, your health doesn't allow you to continue to work, you want to get involved in some other things. There could be a lot of reasons why you're considering your retirement. But we deal with these types of questions every day with our clients, and we typically run through some of the similar types of steps. So we wanted to share some of those pieces with you. We'll call it our retirement prep worksheets, checklists, whatever you want to refer to it as. But basically, there's 12 different components. So I wanted to dive through each one of those today. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so bear with us and let's see what we can discover. So diving right in. Step number one is, what are we going to do in retirement? All right. A lot of people think like I get to a certain age, I get to a certain stage of my life and I need to retire. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So more importantly, think through what it is you want to do. Do you want to get involved in charities? Do you want to work part-time? What are the things that you really want to do day in and day out when you don't have to go to work every day? And most people haven't really given that much thought because most of their social life has been driven around their work-related functions day in and day out. So retire on purpose. Have some goals, find some things you're passionate about, and go out and start planning ahead. One of the articles I read a while back actually said something like, go do a mini retirement. Take 2 weeks off and see what you can find for interest and do a little testing, if you will. So that's step number one. Figure out what you want to do in your retirement. Step number two is, do I have an idea of what my expenses are going to be in my retirement years? And when it comes to some of this stuff, a useful tool is just doing a budget. Track what you've been spending, track what you are spending. We usually try to break it down into what are your fixed expenses. So things like utilities, property taxes, healthcare, food, all those types of things that we know we're always going to have. And then we have a second category, which is more your lifestyle. What do you want to do for fun? Do you want to travel? Do you want to join the country club? What are those things out there? And really try to get a good understanding of what those numbers are so that you have a better idea of what your needs for income will be as you go into retirement. And doing the old budget work has never hurt anyone. So take some time, track what you're spending, and have a good prepared budget as you go into your retirement. All right. So moving on to step number three, now we got to figure out, where's my money going to come from when I'm in retirement, or do I have a distribution plan in place? We might have all sorts of assets spread out over pre-tax accounts, IRAs, 401ks, so forth and so on. We might have tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs or life insurance. We might have rental income. We might have a pension-like income. There's lots of different places that you can get retirement income from, but having a good understanding of where you're going to pull it from is really a key step into your retirement plan. And another piece that goes into step number four that kind of ties into that is, what do I have secured for guaranteed lifetime income? Because most people are always worried about running out of money in their retirement years. So securing guaranteed lifetime income can really make a big difference in the fact that if I know I'm never going to run out of this income, it allows me to invest some of my other dollars maybe a little more aggressively to try to outpace inflation and so forth. We talk a lot about a bucket strategy, and we'll dive into that in later shows. But really understanding where your money is going to come from, why it's going to come from there, and how it's working in the meantime is really a key component of securing guaranteed income and retiring with confidence. Okay, now we're going to move on to our step five, and that piece is really going to be built around, how are we managing market volatility? How are we going to handle fluctuations in the market? And what do we do if the market corrects itself? We fully expect that to happen at some time. So are we properly prepared? All right. So again, I referenced that bucket strategy earlier, knowing where your money's at. So in the bucket strategy, we might have one bucket that's filled with more for immediate needs. In our second bucket, we might have more filled for income needs or dollars that are going to feed or fill our immediate income bucket. And then the third and final bucket might be more driven for long term, more like inflation type stuff, so we can invest it a little more aggressively. But understanding how we're going to handle that volatility is really key, because it's not like it used to be, folks, when you would retire, go put all your money in a CD at the bank, and then 10 years later you were passing away. Today, there's a pretty good chance you're going to live into your 90s. I think the stat I heard recently was that if there's a married couple age 65, there's over a 50% chance that one of you is making it to age 90. So it's a pretty long time to plan on living on this income in your retirement years. And then the final one, we get asked this quite a bit as well. That's step number 6, is how much can I withdraw and not have to worry about running out of money? And so that would be what we call a withdrawal rate. And a safe assumption in today's world is usually somewhere between 2 and 4% of your portfolio value. So simple math, if I've got $1 million, I pull out 3% of my total portfolio value, that's $30,000 a year. If I did step 2 correctly and understood what my expenses are and took it in with how much guaranteed lifetime income I have, maybe that 30,000 is enough. Maybe it's not enough. But those are answers that you need to work through with some sort of a trusted advisor, and we'll get to that as we continue on down this path. So let's move on to step number 7. Step number 7 is, do you have a plan to maximize your Social Security? All right, retirement today is made up a lot of Social Security income, and it's one of the most overlooked, confusing items that I've seen in the retirement planning world. Growing up in small town Iowa here, I find people all the time that 70, 80% plus of their retirement income is based on Social Security. So I always emphasize we need to make sure we don't mess that up. So we encourage all of our folks, go do a Social Security analysis, find out what your benefits are going to be, how do you maximize those, not only for yourself, but for your spouse as well. There's what they call a survivor benefit in Social Security that says whoever has the higher benefit, you or your spouse, if one of you dies, the remaining spouse gets the higher of those two benefits. So sometimes we go in and we help folks say, let's maximize one of those benefits and then start the other one a little bit earlier. That way, if something happens, one of you dies, the other one gets to jump over to that higher benefit. There's lots of strategies on Social Security, but the key is, do you have a plan to max it out? Okay. Step number 8 is, do you have a plan for health insurance? All right. So very troubling item in today's retirement planning world, because more and more people are retiring prior to age 65. So if I'm pre-65 and I'm retiring, do I know all of my options for health insurance? Most folks have been on some sort of a group health plan where they may have paid part of the premium or very little amount of the premium. And if that's the case, usually it's a pretty good shell shock to find out how much actual health insurance costs. So exhaust all your options. Look into COBRA. Can you stay on your group plan if you pay the premiums? Look into what your different choices are and make sure that you've got a plan in mind for those. Okay. If you are 65, now you need to look into Medicare. So what are your supplements? How do they work? Trust me, folks, they're not all the same. So make sure you're working with some sort of a trusted advisor to make sure they can help you understand what they are, including prescription drug coverages, because you don't want to mess that up either. Is really important to understand how you're going to get yourself protected for healthcare. All right, moving on. Step number 8, I believe we're on, maybe 9. Too many steps here, I guess. But step number 9 is, do you have a plan for long-term care? All right. most folks today that I'm visiting with don't even like to think about it. They don't like to talk about it. They don't want to even consider what may happen to them down the road. But it is very key, because the last thing I want to see as an advisor, and I'm guessing you would say the same thing, is your entire nest egg be taken away and sent to pay for your care in either a skilled nursing home, an assisted living facility, or even in-home health care. So some people insure that risk away. So they buy insurance coverages. Some people just choose to self-fund it. Some people choose to go on Medicaid. The point is you need to have a plan in place for how you're going to fund those needs in your retirement. All right. So make sure you get that in good order here today. So step number 10 is, have you completed a life insurance audit? All right. Most life insurance policies have drastically changed over the last 20 years as interest rates have continued to come down, down, and down. So you'll want to make sure you complete what we call an audit, get in-force illustrations, find out what kind of performance your policy has had, because it doesn't really make any difference what company it is, folks. They're all facing the same struggles. We see it all the time. This policy was going to do this for me, and now it's not. So it's better to do something about it when you still can than waiting until all of a sudden you're 90 years old and you got to figure out the options, and none of them are really good. So do an audit, figure out if it's doing what you want it to, make sure your beneficiaries are who you want them to be, and understand how that can go into the long-term planning that you're going to need in your retirement years. Okay, moving on to step number 11. Step number 11 is, do you have a plan to effectively transfer the rest of your stuff in the event that you pass away? So what I'm talking about here is wills or last wills and testaments. Do you have a power of attorney in place if you can't make financial or medical decisions for you? Do you have a living will? What are those legal documents that you need to have in good order to fulfill the wishes that you want to have? I've seen too many people in the last few months even that have passed away with no will in place, and it's just created a complete nightmare for their families. So go out, spend a couple $100, get a will written up, and make sure your stuff is going to pass the way you want it to pass. Okay? And also in this process, do a full beneficiary review, making sure that I haven't left an ex-spouse on as a beneficiary. I've got my right kids named. I've got my assets going to certain trusts that I want them to go to. Lots of little simple things that can make a big difference when it comes time to settle your estate. All right, so make sure you don't mess those things up. And then finally, do you have a team of trusted advisors in place? So step number 12 is, who's going to be on your team? Do you have somebody that is looking out for your best interest, is looking at the whole picture, or not just one piece of the puzzle? Do you have somebody that's going to be there when you need them the most? You know, I talk about this a lot with folks that are working with advisors, and not that they're bad advisors, but if they're in their 50s or 60s, are they going to be there when these retirees or pre-retirees need them the most, when they're in their 70s? Or will those advisors potentially retire and maybe they have a succession plan, maybe they don't? So those are questions you need to be asking the professional that you're working with is, hey, who am I going to be working with 20 years down the road when I'm going to need you the most to help me get through these financial challenges that I'm sure I'm going to face? So there you have it, folks. Those are our 12 checklist have-to items when you're considering retirement. And making sure each and every one of those is checked off the list in good order will really give you more of the confidence you need going into those retirement years. And so what we did is we threw together a couple different worksheets for you here. One of them is based on more of the first 6 steps that we talked about, more philosophical, some numbers in there as well, but more 30,000-foot view. How am I going to do this? Have I thought through the full retirement picture? Do I have enough to retire with the confidence that I want to have? And then the second worksheet is really more of that worksheet or steps that I need to go take action on. So things, like I said, Do I have a Social Security analysis done? Have I completed my life insurance audit? Do I know what I'm going to secure for health insurance? So take advantage of those, download them, print them off, work through the worksheets. If you need some help, don't be afraid to reach out to our team. It's what we do every single day with clients really all over the country. So our goal is to try to give you some tips to follow and try to make this the best possible experience you can have walking into retirement with the confidence that you need. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. We're going to keep covering each and every one of these topics in more depth as we go forward, and I appreciate you sticking with me. You have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you later for now.